Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, featuring the voices of Shamik Moore, Haley Steinfeld, Oscar Isaac, Jake Johnson, Isa Rae, Brian Tyree Henry, Luna Lauren Velez, Rachel Dratch, Jason Schwartzman, and Daniel Kaluuya, directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kem Powers, and Justin K. Thompson. Now, I had a hard time trying to get a second viewing in this while taking notes because there was a lot of people going to this movie on the first weekend. And let's see. I did eventually go twice, but it was almost kind of hard, but I made it on a Wednesday. So, let's get into the movie. The movie begins with Gwen Stacy, returning voice of Haley Steinfeld, playing in a band, and she keeps going with her while her friends stop playing the band, and she walks out on them explaining her relationship with Miles Morales, returning voice of Shamik Moore in the background, and we get her backstory of how she became Spider-Gwen in Chelsea, New York. And she tells the story of how she unfortunately killed her best friend Peter Parker while he was a lizard because of a bully named Ned, and he wanted to be as special as she is, while her father, Captain George Stacy, wants to hunt her alter ego Spider Gwen, or as they call her Spider Woman, but I'm calling her Spider Gwen because come on, what's the difference? While he doesn't know anything about who she is, and this animation is like the Spider Verse into the Spider Verse, very revolutionary in my opinion, and I like hanging out with and getting to know Gwen as a character in these movies. Captain Stacy tries to find Spider Gwen as she shows up and webs them up and comes in to fight the Vulture at an art museum as he glitches when. And then we get Spider Man 2099, aka Miguel O'Hara, returning voice of Oscar Isaac, who was previously in the end of the credits of the first movie, who is the leader of the Spider Verse, along with Jessica Drew, voiced by Isa Rae. And they help Gwen save the day while her father finds out who she really is. And Miguel has a cool costume, and Jessica is badass anyways, as she fights crime while she's pregnant. And she has a cool costume as well as a motorcycle. And this first 20 minutes of hearing about her about how Gwen gets to the Spider Verse is intriguing, but a very sad story. And she has no choice but to go with Miguel and Jessica, which is pretty depressing for sure. But I like it quite a bit. In Brooklyn, in a different Spider World, Miles Morales is about to meet with the principal along with his mother Rio, returning voice of Luna Lauren Velez, and Jeff, returning voice of Brian Tyree Henry, about his future while he fights a supervillain from his past named Spot, voiced by Jason Schwartzman. And for the life of me, I can't remember who this guy is. And his life is out of control for the past year. And yes, it's been a year since the events of Spider Man Into the Spider Verse, and what's making me laugh is while finding Spot, Miles is flying over the place, and the dialogue in these scenes is making me laugh right off the bat. The principal wants Miles to go to a special school for the gifted kids in New Jersey, while Spot escapes and Miles fights him again, with Jeff bumping into the fight, and Spot shows him they met when he squished his spider and accidentally hit him with a bagel while he monologues in about how he's Spider Man's nemesis, which is something I don't particularly remember from Into the Spider Verse, but it makes sense. And I like being around Miles and his family again, as they tell the best stories in the movies as far as the characters are concerned. Spot goes through different universes and animated world to a Lego world to even in Venomverse, as we see Mrs. Chen from Venom. And the Lego Spider-Man contacts Miguel that something happens while Jeff is about to make the police captain, while Rio makes a speech and concerned about Miles' whereabouts, while Miles is grabbing two cakes, like he brought up when he walked in the principal's office, so that kind of made me laugh. And they say I'm not proud, which is something he didn't mean to write, as they have an argument and ground him for a month, and he goes to his bedroom and he misses Gwen when he sees his drawings to listening his tunes until Gwen shows up and they swing around Brooklyn as she tells him about the Spider-Verse. And I'm really enjoying myself watching this movie, seeing these characters again. And they're fun to be around while Miles and Gwen hang out with each other and hanging on and hanging upside down, which did scare me to death when in IMAX. My first viewing was in IMAX. And they have a barbecue for Jeff to become a police captain, as we saw earlier in the film, which is pretty good writing, as this is so far a great move, as great as a movie as Into the Spider-Verse. Rio talks with Miles and she says to go with Gwen and make sure he belongs and promises her to take care of himself, which is a beautiful scene as he goes after Gwen, and something happens I'll bring up in the next segment. Spot makes a building explode by giving Spot more spots and gets into a different Spider-Verses. And Gwen gets in contact with Jessica and she says she'll never see him again. And Jessica sends Gwen to Earth 5101, and Miles follows behind as we're in Mumbattan, which is kind of funny. I get why, but. And Gwen and Miles fight Spot while he glitches and meets Paviter Prakar. Wait, how do you say it? Prabhakar? I don't know if I said that right. Please forgive me. And we learn his story while they fight Spot and get in a building where he gets more spots while Miles tries to electrocute a force. And we get Howie Brown, aka Spider-Punk, voiced by Daniel Kaluuya. And we learn his origin story uses a guitar as a weapon as they continue to fight Spot, and he suddenly disappears and sees darkness in his future, and the building collapses. The fight with Spot isn't clever as the one at the beginning of the movie, as it was pretty dark. The spider people try to save Mumbattan, but as it's kind of saved, at the same time, it's a disaster. I do like the animation of that world as it's great to look at. Jessica comes in the scene with some other spider people, and Gwen, Hobius, Miles go to headquarters in New York. Yeah, that's right. And as we get to Spider Society, it looks amazing, and we get the lasers like Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Aaron Davis, who was played by Donald Glover in live-action Spider-Man Homecoming, as he makes a cameo. And we get many cameos like Doc Ock returning voice of Catherine Hahn. Not the Alfred Molina one, but the one from Into the Spider-Verse. And Miles is introduced to Miguel as we learn of his origin story. And his story is the darkest of the Spider-Man stories, and I appreciate that. Miles and Miguel meet for the first time, and he seems very upset with him, but with Peter B. Parker returning voice of Jane Johnson, who brings his baby girl May, or as he calls her, Mayday, coming in. And he's the best comedic thing in this second half, as a lot of the second half is very serious to the point we needed a bit of humor in this half. Miles sees a flashback, and Uncle Aaron returning voice of Mahershala Ali, and Miguel tells Miles this is how Spider-Man stories goes, and does his best to not break it apart. But Miles did, and thinks about how his father is about to be police captain and is going to die in his universe in 2 days, and he wants to do his own thing. And he's making very good points, but unfortunately he has no choice but to stick with it. And this message is dramatic, but I do like the backstory of how Miles is not supposed to be in the spider world, as it looks great. Miles breaks the force field, and all the spider people go after Miles, and they get from one universe to another as Peter tries to have a conversation with Miles, but he calls the spider people, and Miguel catches up to Miles, and Miguel gets to Miles on a train, and they have a fight, and he gets out of the Spider-Verse. As he gets out, and Miles turns invisible and hacks into the spider computers, trying to get back home. And as he's successful, and Miguel failed him, which was a great spider versus spider battle, Miguel bans Gwen from the Spider-Verse and goes to another Spider-Verse, which happens to be where Miles is at. But is Gwen there, and is Miles in the Spider-Verse where he belongs? Which is super clever in my opinion. Gwen gets back to her father's place as he's depressed and talks with her about how he quit the Force because it doesn't matter if he doesn't arrest his own daughter, which is a beautiful message. And this movie does a beautiful job at giving the audience a beautiful message. Miles goes back home while Miguel goes after him, and Gwen gets a spider watch back in the Spider-Verse as Miles gets back to his home and shows his mom he's Spider-Man, and she doesn't know who Spider-Man is, and he sees Uncle Aaron, and they go into his lair, and he, as it glitches, and sees Miles G. Morales is not Spider-Man, but something evil. And they're about to kill him, but we have to wait 10 months, 9 months, I'll say, till Beyond the Spider-Verse coming out, which is a reveal that he's not in his own Spider-Verse while Gwen tries to find Miles, but she talks with his parents and gets Peter and Mayday to help Miles and get the original Spider Gang from Into the Spider-Verse to fight in the Spider-Verse. And mid-credits say Miles Morales will return in Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse in 9 months, and this climax was a cliffhanger I knew was coming, but it's better to wait for 9 months for another movie than, say, 2 years, which is what Fast X or 10 is doing. But either way, this is a much better movie than Fast 10, as this is beyond a great cliffhanger. Hang on to, as this is satisfying, unlike Fast 10. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. The animation is like Into the Spider-Verse, very revolutionary, and I do like these characters, and some of their origin stories, like with Gwen and Miguel, are very well written, and the world of the Spider-Verse was amazing to look at. The story is incredible for the way was told, that you need to watch this movie multiple times to get new things, and this is a very spectacular, as this movie is absolutely great. This is, again, a great Spider-Man movie like Into the Spider-Verse, as I love this movie, and this is easily getting another strong recommendation, as this is as good as Into the Spider-Verse. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me until we get another Spider-Verse or Madame Web or Kraven the Hunter coming out. With great power comes great responsibility.